Do you pride yourself in having really high standards? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But do you also find that when you achieve those standards, it's still not good enough and you're constantly giving yourself a hard time for how it could be done better? Then keep watching. Today, we are going to look at perfectionism and its relationship to ego. Let me tell you the story of Gita. Gita was a real high flyer, highly regarded within the organization in which she worked, and she'd worked her way up because of her reputation for delivering really good quality results. She was in a new role where she had a much more senior brief. It was a much larger role, and also she was leading a much bigger team. And she came to me because she was stressed and she was overwhelmed. She seemed to have far too much to do. And also she was struggling with leading her team and ensuring that they achieved to the same high standards that she had. When we delved a little deeper, what we got to see was that Gita was micromanaging her team. She was really stuck in the detail of the operation and not allowing her the space or the time to step back and think strategically. And what was driving that was her perfectionism. She always wanted to be striving for better. And that meant that she achieved some really good results, but she never gave herself credit for those results and the quality to which she achieved them. And she never gave her team credit either. The impact of this was that her team were demotivated. They felt like they didn't have a real say in how things could be done. Gita was exhausted because she was carrying so much. And also what was happening was innovation and creativity was being killed off. So does this resonate with you? Can you recognize yourself here in terms of striving for perfectionism? Or maybe you've been led by someone who's been a real perfectionist freak, and no matter what you've done, it's never been good enough, and you yourself have felt demotivated. Maybe you've even left on the back of that. So this was certainly the case with Gita. And what was going on here was her ego was activated by an anxiety of her not feeling good enough. And that drove her perfectionism. So one of the things we did in working together was I helped Gita to start to see that she did make regular successes and they were regularly of good quality. So almost on a daily basis, I encouraged her to acknowledge the things she was achieving and the things her team were achieving. So she started to filter for the things that were positive and that were good enough, rather than constantly filtering for things that weren't. The other thing we did was to focus around building her sense of trust in her team and starting to recognize the strengths that they brought to the party and how she could use those strengths to help them and to help the team be successful as a whole. Because actually they had different sets of strengths to the strengths that Gita had. And by trusting them, they could find other ways of solving the problems and delivering on the task that she might not have thought of. And thus she started to encourage creativity and innovation rather than discouraging it through her micromanagement. So do you have a fear of not being good enough or not ever achieving things that are good enough that drives you to be a perfectionist? If so, please comment in the box below. Or have you ever been led by someone who was a real perfectionist? And how did that impact you? And how did you get yourself around that as well? Again, I'd love to hear from you, and do subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to hear regularly around when our videos are being posted, also remember to ring the bell.